My name is Michelle Johnson. I have a husband who's 2 years older than me and a daughter in elementary school. Both my husband and I work. I was a dedicated designer at a certain apparel company. Then one day, I received a phone call at work. What? My parents were in an accident. I was in shock. It turned out that my parents had died in an accident while on vacation. My parents, who were close to each other, used to go on trips about once a month. On that day, it seemed they were driving to a tourist destination, but they apparently fell off a cliff on the way. They were found by a passerby, but it was too late. I was stunned, but I managed to leave work early and decided to call my husband first. Hey, I need to talk to you about something important. What is it? I'm busy, you know. My husband sounded irritated over the phone. Even so, I took a deep breath and continued the conversation. Actually, my dad and mom have passed away. Really? Is that true? Yes, they had an accident during their trip. When they were found, it was already too late. As I talked about my parents, I couldn't help but cry. I was sobbing while on the phone. Ah, what a hassle. Stop crying, will you? How can you say it's a hassle? My parents are gone. I'm on a business trip right now. Don't call me for such trivial things. Trivial? That's a terrible thing to say. What do you think my parents were to me? Of course, I appreciate what they did for me, but to me, they were practically strangers. Besides, there's no point dwelling on the dead. There might be a funeral coming up, but I can't attend. What? Even though they're family? I told you, as far as I'm concerned, they were strangers. I can't afford to take off work for strangers, so don't call me anymore. With that, my husband hung up the call abruptly. I wondered how he could say such cruel things. At that moment, I felt something break inside me. In the beginning, my husband always put me first and seemed to care a lot about me. When he found out I was pregnant, he cried with joy. During the pregnancy, he was very considerate, almost to the point where I felt embarrassed. Even after our daughter was born, we used to have a good time together. But about a year ago, he started acting distant towards me. He stopped coming home often, and his attitude towards me grew colder. It wasn't that he disliked me. He just seemed to lose interest in me. He used to notice even the slightest changes in me, but now, even if I cut my hair short, he wouldn't care. No matter how much I tried to dress up to catch his attention, he would ridicule me instead. Come on, at your age, why are you wearing that outfit? You're not young anymore. Stop wearing floral skirts. You look shabby. That's horrible. You used to compliment me. You've gained weight since we got married, haven't you? I guess having a child really takes away a woman's charm. This is like a fraud. He would mock my appearance like this. His unkind words hurt me deeply. Our daughter seemed to notice that we weren't getting along. She always seemed worried about me when I was being subjected to his harsh words. One day, as I sat in the living room deep in thought, my mother-in-law, who was living with us, came over. Actually, we built our own house and started living with my in-laws when our daughter started elementary school. Seeing me cry, my mother-in-law looked displeased. Hey, what's a grown woman like you crying for? Actually, my dad and mom just died. What? How? They had an accident on their trip. Who, both of them? Gone at once? They really were inseparable. But hey, you're lucky to get the insurance money for both of them. Let's go out for a nice meal with everyone to celebrate. How can you say that? My parents have died. How can you be so cruel? People die eventually. It just happened sooner for them. Stop crying and get dinner ready, will you? I'm hungry. My mother-in-law is what you'd call a classic case of a difficult mother-in-law. I had hoped that hearing about my parents' death, she would offer some kind words, but it seemed she didn't have a compassionate bone in her body. So I started preparing for the funeral with the help of my relatives. My husband, claiming he was too busy with work, didn't even attend. I couldn't believe how heartless he was. After my parents' funeral, I decided to start preparing for a divorce. Once everything was in order, I left a voicemail for my husband, who was still on his business trip. "I'm going on a long business trip. Please take good care of your parents." That's all I said in the message. I had no more regrets. I left the house where I had lived for so many years with my belongings. A few hours later, while working at the office, I was called in by HR. My husband, drenched in sweat, had come looking for me. I had been ignoring his calls. He probably thought he'd find me at work. Truthfully, I didn't even want to see his face anymore, but I didn't want to cause a scene at work, so I reluctantly agreed to meet him. When I stepped into the entrance, there he was, looking extremely flustered. "Michelle, what's this all about? Mom and Dad are in a mess." Give me a break. "I'm sorry, but you can't just show up like this. I'm working, you know. Besides, weren't you supposed to be on a business trip? I rushed back as soon as I got Dad's call after you left. They were struggling without you. Mom's in the hospital, Dad's bedridden, and your stuff is gone. What happened?" I decided to explain everything to him step by step. "Your mother's diabetes got worse, and she had to be hospitalized urgently. You knew she had diabetes, right?" "I knew, but it wasn't a big deal, was it? She always seemed fine at home." "She might have looked fine, but her condition was serious. She collapsed with a severe headache. After some tests, they said she needed to be hospitalized. She wasn't taking her medication or going to her doctor's appointments, so her condition worsened. And why is Dad bedridden? Your father threw out his back trying to take your mother to the hospital. He's always had a weak back, and trying to lift your mother, who's nearly 220 pounds, didn't help." "What? Really?" My husband was visibly shocked and speechless for a while. My mother-in-law had been suffering from diabetes for about 2 years. She always loved greasy foods and high-calorie snacks, often snacking whenever she had time. I tried to make low-calorie meals for her, considering her condition, but it seemed more annoying to her than anything else. "What is this?" "The meatloaf hardly tastes like meat. I added soy pulp to the meatloaf, thinking it would help you feel fuller and be better for your health." "This is inedible. I don't want to eat such a poor meal." With that, my mother-in-law threw the meatloaf I made into the sink. This wasn't the first time she had discarded a meal I prepared. Even seeing her do this, my husband turned a blind eye. Worse, he would sometimes blame me for it. "Can't you stop doing things that upset Mom like that meatloaf? You're practically picking a fight." I was thinking of her health. If she keeps eating high-calorie meals, it could be life-threatening. That's none of your business. Let her eat what she wants, and don't you dare do something like this again. I'm the one who has to deal with the fallout. As for my father-in-law, he never got involved in our arguments. It was more about not wanting to get dragged into it than indifference. I can't believe I put up with my husband and mother-in-law for so long. I had thought about divorce many times, but I hesitated because I didn't want to take my daughter's father away from her. Living without a father isn't always seen positively, but I can't live with this man anymore. I've made up my mind. I'm sorry, but I don't want to talk to you anymore. Can you please leave? I don't want to cause trouble at work. No, I need answers. Let's talk properly. Fine, let's go somewhere else. It was lunchtime, so we decided to go to a nearby cafe. As soon as we sat down, my husband asked, So what are you going to do about Mom and Dad? You're going to quit your job and take care of them, right? What? Why should I, a stranger, take care of them? They're your parents. You deal with it. They're your parents too, so you should take care of them. Stranger? They're my mom and dad. Sure, we're not blood related, but we're still family. Well, we're going to be strangers soon, so it's none of my business anymore. Why should I care for your parents after we divorce? After we divorced? Strangers? What are you talking about? He seemed to be missing the important point. Didn't you see the divorce papers I left in the living room? I'd already filled in my part. I need you to sign it too. Divorce? He was so preoccupied with his parents' situation that he hadn't paid much attention to the house. He was so shocked that he stood up abruptly. Please sit down. You're drawing attention. Michelle, are you serious about this divorce? Dead serious. Do I look like someone who jokes? I thought you were just going on a long business trip. That was a lie. I'm actually transferring to a different department in another state. The move is a bit later, though. What? I didn't hear anything about that. After I told my company that I might get divorced, they offered me a transfer. And I'm not telling you which state I'm going to. What? Are you really serious about getting divorced? He looked at me in disbelief, not expecting things to have progressed this far without his knowledge. Divorcing will hurt our daughter. Have you thought about her? Are you in any position to say that after all the betrayals? What? What are you talking about? I haven't betrayed you. On the contrary, I've been working for you and our family. Don't you have any gratitude for me? Gratitude? When you hardly contributed to our living expenses. My husband stumbled over his words. At that, he had started contributing less to our living expenses about 2 years ago, citing a decrease in his salary. Initially, we split the expenses evenly, but gradually more of the burden fell on me. There were even times when he didn't contribute a single cent. Fortunately, I worked for a decent company and earned a fairly good salary, even more than my husband. You don't contribute to the living expenses, leave all the child care to me, and at home, there's a mean mother-in-law who picks on me. What benefit do I have staying with you? There's no such thing as benefits or drawbacks in a marriage. We married because we loved each other. Maybe I felt that way back then, but not anymore. You love someone else now, don't you? What are you talking about? He said this, but his eyes were clearly darting around, betraying his nervousness. I know about it. You've been having an affair with a young woman at work. It's been going on for about a year now, hasn't it? Her name is Lily, right? A slender woman with long black hair, just your type. Wait a minute. What are you talking about? Are you confused, or has someone been feeding you lies? No, I hired a private detective to investigate you. I suspected you might be cheating, but I never thought it would be with a woman 10 years younger. And she's married, right? Just got married, and yet... Is this okay? You investigated me? Of course. If we're getting divorced, I have to look out for my own interests. With this, I'll get compensation from both of you, which should stabilize my life for a while. He must have thought his affair was a secret. He was visibly shocked. After deciding to divorce my husband, I hired a private detective to investigate. Since he stopped coming home, his behavior had become suspicious. He started locking his phone, making secretive calls in another room, leaving the house with unusually large bags. I tried not to worry, but he was indeed having an affair. The woman was a temp worker. Apparently, it was she who made advances towards my husband. She was the one who approached me. She never seemed satisfied with just one man and hit on me at a drinking party. Of course I rejected her, but she was persistent, and I couldn't resist. So you're saying it's not your fault? Sure, she was seeing other men, but you're also responsible for getting involved. She was with other men. According to the detective, she's been with at least 3 others besides you. She told me I was the only one. My husband slammed his fist on the table, showing his irritation from the detective's investigation. I found out that the woman he was having an affair with is married to a high-ranking executive of a major company. She's nearly 2 decades older than my husband, and it seems like she married him for his money. My husband's infidelity is bad enough, but she's no better. In a way, they're 2 of a kind. But I was just messing around with her. It was just a casual thing, you know. Neither of us intended to ruin our families. You think messing around excuses everything. Maybe I can deal with it, but what about our daughter? What if she gets harassed at school because of your affair? That's the fault of whoever is spreading rumors. It's the kids who poke their noses into other people's business that are the problem. You always blame others. You cheated, and you haven't even said sorry once. You show no remorse at all. I'm sorry, okay? I'll break it off with her. Isn't that enough? It's far from enough. I'm leaving you, and I'll be demanding alimony from both of you. At the mention of alimony, my husband's face turned pale. If you go after her for alimony, that means you'll have to tell Lily's husband about us, right? Lily just got married. That's so unfair to her. The one who deserves sympathy is Lily's husband, who got betrayed right after getting married. And for your information, I've already informed Lily's husband about the affair. What? You hadn't heard from Lily? No, she's been off sick from work for a while, and I couldn't get in touch with her. She must have been too shocked to contact anyone. Are you serious? What am I going to do if this gets out at work? You brought this on yourself. And you too were using your paid leave to meet up, weren't you? How do you know all this? You've been on business trips a lot lately, so I asked your company about it. They said you weren't on any trips, just using your paid leave. I checked, and Lily was off on the same day as you were meeting up. My husband fell silent, looking down. He must know he's caught. Just then, an unexpected person approached us. What are you doing here, Wen? You're on unpaid leave today, boss. It was my husband's boss from the same department. Apparently, the boss often comes to this cafe around lunchtime. My husband looked embarrassed. You said you needed the day off for family matters, right? Yes, that's right. His boss, sensing something was off, seemed to have put 2 and 2 together. I decided to fill him in on the situation. He knew I was his wife, as we have met a couple of times before. Actually, this guy's been having an affair with a young woman at work, a temp named Lily Young. What? Is that true? His boss shouted loud enough for others to hear. Boss, please lower your voice. Everyone's looking. Of course they are. I'd be shocked too if my employee was having an affair, and he used his paid leave to meet up with her. You did that during our busiest time. I'm sorry. I'm going to break up with her, so can you keep it a secret from the other employees? What are you saying? Of course, I'm going to report this. You're in sales, right? Sales is about selling your character as much as the product. No one's going to buy anything from someone who betrays his own family. You might not get fired, but don't think you can stay in your current department. Wait, please. I don't know any other kind of work, and if I'm transferred, my salary. I don't care about your problems. You should be apologizing to your wife. You've hurt her. I know I did something wrong, but this has nothing to do with my job. It does. That's why I'm telling you. I've lost all trust in you. We have plenty of capable employees. I'll find someone else to lead the next project. It turned out my husband was the leader of an important project. If it succeeded, he was almost guaranteed a promotion. He had been preparing for it for a long time. That's not fair. You said I was the right person for the job. Not anymore. I've lost all faith in you. I'll report to the higher-ups right away. Excuse me. After his boss left the cafe, my husband just hung his head. His boss said he was supposed to take a lunch break, but he had to go back to the office right away to report about my husband. It's over. Everything was going so well. Why did it have to come to this? His voice trembled, and he looked like he might cry any moment. I'm going to leave the rest to my lawyer, so let's discuss through him from now on. I left his business card on the living room table. So give him a call if there's anything. You're really serious about divorcing me? He asked, tears in his eyes. It seemed too late for such questions. I nodded firmly. That's what I said. I can't stand living with a cheater anymore, and I've had enough of your mother too. You always turned a blind eye when she was mean to me. I told you several times I wanted to stop living with her, but you wouldn't listen. You never took my side, even though you saw how she treated me. You always said I was overthinking it. I didn't realize you were so troubled about my mom. I'll be more careful from now on. It's too late for that. You'll have your hands full with visiting the hospital and caregiving for your parents. There's no way I can manage that. Hospital bills aren't cheap, and I have to work. How am I supposed to take care of my dad? Maybe you should consider changing your job. It's going to be awkward at your current company anyway. Don't say it like it's easy, please. I'm sorry for the affair. Come back to me. It's impossible. I've already arranged for a transfer at work, and our daughter is preparing to transfer schools too. I didn't want to get divorced. Then in the cafe, he started crying loudly. He looked like a child who couldn't get the toy he wanted. I was so embarrassed that I decided to leave him there and walk out. He continued to cry even after I left, and it seems some young people in the cafe found it amusing and recorded it, uploading it to social media with a blurred face. Although the video was quickly removed, it seems his colleagues saw it. We officially divorced through our lawyers. I demanded a lump sum in alimony from both my ex-husband and his mistress. I'd also arranged for my ex to pay child support for our daughter, with my lawyer making sure he keeps up with the payments. His mistress ended up divorcing her husband too. My ex-husband was also sued for alimony by her ex-husband. Both my ex and his mistress found it hard to stay at their jobs and left, seemingly running away. They dated for a while, but she left him because she didn't want to take care of his parents. She's still young, so she probably ran off to some other guy. Now my ex has to take care of his father at home, so he's not working full-time, just getting by with part-time jobs. As for me, I'm focusing on my work in my new department. I've been given important tasks and even got a small raise. My daughter had to transfer schools, but she's made friends quickly and seems happy. I've become a single mother, but I have no regrets. I'm sure my parents are watching over me. I want to live strongly, watching over my beloved daughter's growth.